Welcome to NTR Degree College. My name is M. Jagadishwari. I am your English lecturer. We are going to have the syllabus that is going to be taken in today's session is third semester, and we are going to see that grammar is the class. It is very interesting for you, and you can have to know what is the use of this grammar and learning of the words. Then you can also have the understanding of the grammar words that is very rich in vocabulary. So this what is vocabulary? You can also know. You have to know the difficult meanings of the vocabulary of the words that are to be known and can be inserted in between the sentences there. So for that enrichment of that language, you should have to go through the process of knowing of the new words, which enriches you in the minds of knowledge where these words and other sentences are being framed. So those learning of the words can be a process that can be used in the purpose of your grammar, and in that meanwhile whatever the things that are to be known from you can be learned with some new words of grammar there. So what is the word and what are the new words that are going to be effect to learn in this grammar? You can have better translation, and its meaning and its usage can be better known through the usage of a dictionary there. So what is the purpose of knowing this grammar? Exactly knowing the meanings and its words, its explanation and usage of the correct form of the words, sentences and phrases in knowing the English speaking, reading, writing and as well as learning of the skills. So these are the 4 skills which you can adopt in the grammar, where this effectiveness of the words can be learned from these in a words or in a sentence. So that is why today also some part of the grammar which is remaining for you, it is in the process of prepositions, where these kind of prepositions are being placed in the words or even in the sentences, and what are even it is forming of these words and in a sentences can be seen yesterday. We have given some of the relations of these kinds of prepositions, and you can also have in today's session class of other prepositions there. And what are those other kinds of the prepositions that can be learned through this grammar, which is effective in the knowing of the words and which is essential for learning of yourself in the improve of your rich in vocabulary. So those are the words that can be identified and made it into the use of the words and the sentences where are to be used there. So these kind of prepositions can be known by the perfect learning of the part which are going to be taken in part of our session, and that is nothing but of our remaining part of our prepositions there. Then what are these other part of the prepositions that can be taken place, can be have in today's session, that can be seen as prepositions of place. So you can see the few examples for prepositions of place. And what are those prepositions when you are going to identify the words or phrases in a sentence can be given in such a type of places there. Then that can be understood by the giving of the prepositions at one place. So that can be called as prepositions of place. These can be identified. Preposition of places. Then what are they? You can use for these examples prepositions of the place. Examples you can give as to. One more is at. Then you can have the other form of the words that can be taken as from, any. Then you can have this out of, then out of and behind. See this, out of, then behind. So prepositions of places, you are going to have to see the place, the preposition of a place where you are going to have this place. The place is nothing but where you are going to have to give in the sort of a place, or you are finding to someone who is there at particular point or stand, or the place of a person where he is going to insist him. So that can be called as your prepositions of place. And those examples of the words that of place is being identified can be given as to is there, to, and at, and from is there, from, away from, and out of, and behind. So these are the positions of the places which you are going to see and identify the nature of the prepositions of the place there. So similarly, when you come to the prepositions of time, so at that time you can see what the time is denoting for you. At that time you can have at is the example, and on is the example. In words you can use in, for, before, then after, since, after is there, since is there, then behind, or then this between. These are the words in which you are going to give this between is there. So these are nothing but that may be saying the accessing of the time there. So this time can be, the prepositions are exactly the time he is going to meet, or anywhere at that time, or since, previously, backly, forwardly. You can understood by the having of the prepositions of time can be kept by these examples there. So what are the examples that are there? Or you can use the terms of prepositions at, on, in, for, before, after, since, and between. So these are the placing of the recurring words which is going to be having in the having of the prepositions that are going to be taken at part to the time that is given apart from your sentences. So you can have the seeing of these prepositions of places, prepositions of time, then prepositions of, then the prepositions of position now. So what is the position of the preposition? Where just it has to be placed. Then what is that position? For these position you can give the examples of on, then among, then before, then you can have your wind of the words behind and in front of. So these are the words in which you are going to have your prepositions of a position. You can use of these examples. What are the examples? On is there, on. Among is there, among, among. And before the position of the standing of a person also can be best understood by the using of the invention of these word before there, and also behind. Then what is the word which is there? He is behind you. So you can give the position of the other person which is going to be given or said from him, or it is with the example of this in front of. Then what is this in front of? You can use by this the etc. words that can be introduced in the having of the correct preposition, where the people, the position of the standing of the people are going to be inserted in between of these sentences there. So these are the things that are going to be taken in the examples of these prepositions that is going to be placed at the position of ourselves. So these are all the different kinds of the prepositions from which yesterday we have seen the different kinds of prepositions that are going to be taken as simple prepositions, compound prepositions, phrase prepositions, and prepositions at a place, and prepositions at a time, prepositions at a position. So these are the 6 different categories in which the positions, the prepositions can be identified, and they can be set into the having of the learning of the exercises, where you are going to have to put your blanks of the correct prepositions, so that you can use of these italicized exercises can be modified, and you can learn with the examples that is going to be taken for you in between the blanks of the vocabulary, where these the position of the correct grammar word can be placed there. So for these prepositions, you can know by the learning usage of the correct words, where and these words are going to be introduced accurately in between the sentences there, so that you can have to enrich your meaning, vocabulary, and also you can use the own language of the sentences. If you even does not know the meaning also, you can have better to have the reference of your dictionary, where that can be found for you. So from all these things, you can see the different categories of the prepositions, where you are going to have your examples that are going to be inserted from your exercises there. So these can be modified, can again be with the examples from alphabet A to the Z words. So like that you can have few more examples with the verbs plus prepositions. Then you can also see these verbs plus prepositions there. And what is the verb also you know. Then what is the verb there? Along with these 6 different kinds of prepositions, you can have along with this, you can, yesterday itself we have seen verb, preposition, noun. Noun, preposition, noun. So like that only you can have, you are going to introduce this verb plus preposition. Those examples of the verb plus prepositions, just we shall have to see some of the examples that are being added for you. I can give few examples for these verbs plus prepositions there. Then what is the first word? Agree to. So what is the meaning of that one? Agree. Agree to means something or some plan or some proposal. So that you are going to do to make it into agree or itself. You can have a plan or agree to something there. Then agree with. So you are going to make agree is there, and you are going to make agree with someone, somebody, some other person. Then appeal to. So appeal to. So wherever you are going to see appeal, a person who is in the higher levels. So appeal is the word here you are going to use in the case of this higher court there. So court is the medium which you are going to accept the word, that is appeal for. Then appeal to is there, appeal for. So appeal, A-P-P-E-A-L, appeal, and for, that is you are going to make to help. Then you can have this appeal against. So appeal against. So appeal against means again you are taking for this word. Appeal against is a decision that is going to be taken. Appeal to someone. Appeal to someone is there. So that is also you are going to request someone, that is going to be taken in appeal to them. Then you are going to see apologize for, or using with your behavior. Something behavior. So that can be used there. Bring down with the verb prepositions. Bring down, those are prices, P-R-I-C-E-S. Bring out, those are facts, a book there. Then complain of, C-O-M-P-L-A-I-N, complain of something or a pain, etc. Complain to someone, you are going to give complaint. Complain against complain against someone or something. So these are some of the alphabetical prepositions where you can give the verbs with preposition that can be filled with the exercises there. And again you can also classify personal pronouns. Then what are these personal prepositions there? So what are these personal pronouns where you can have these personal pronouns? Personal. We have seen yesterday verbs with prepositions, and you can also use these personal pronouns or again of these examples. So you can use the words for these. First one is I, second one is we and you. Then you can have to see he and she, he is there, she is there, and you can also see it and they. So here in these personal pronouns you can also see from three different having of the pronouns. I is there, singular person, we is there, second person, and also the third person. I, we, you, she, it. So these are the personal pronouns where you are going to adjust in between of the sentences there, and the corresponding forms used after prepositions are again corresponding forms after prepositions. So corresponding forms used after prepositions. Used after prepositions. So what are these corresponding forms used after prepositions? Me, us. We can see having with the examples of me, us, you. Then you can also give him, her, it. Then you can have to give with the examples of them also. So where you are going to see these corresponding forms of prepositions used after them can be as with the examples of these words. After these prepositions, what are the examples that can be used? Me is there, me. Me is myself with the usage of me. Us, 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 and you also with the singular. Him is there, him with him, with the male word, and her is there with the singular word of females, and it is there and them is there. And these are the corresponding words forms used after prepositions that can be used after these. So pronouns again after the prepositions you can see. So what are these prepositions? You can have these first person, singular, male or female also. You can have the differentiation between the sentences where you are going to use there. So you can see again from these pronouns itself only. Personal pronouns, before pronouns, after these prepositions, then after the prepositions the corresponding forms are being completed, then you can use of these personal pronouns that can be used after prepositions. Personal pronouns, corresponding forms used after prepositions, and pronouns are used after prepositions can be, look at the examples there. So I can give the examples by orally. You can also notice as the blanks of the prepositions that can be taken. He gave me a book to me. So he gave a book to me. So me is there, first person singular. He likes all of us. He likes all of us. That is first person plural. I gave a book to you. So I gave a book to you. I gave a gift to him. I gave a gift to him. He took the book from her. I went to the library with them. I went to the library with them. So these where you can have your pronouns after prepositions. The different sentences are being clarified and you can have to give to me, to us, to you, to him, from her, and with them. You can identify the first person singular, first person plural, second person singular, and the third person singular feminine, third person plural. So the remaining sentences we can continue in one more session, so that